the senator representing the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Reti Kingibe, sparked some controversy during the week when she said the minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, lacks executive powers to govern the Federal Capital Territory. Now, the federal lawmaker stated this during a chat with journalists in Abuja, where she was asked to give comments on the demolition threats issued by the minister during his first day in office. She advised Wike to take time to study, quote, the dynamics of the FCT before making good his demolition threats, stressing that he does not have such executive powers without consulting with the National Assembly and the President. Kingibe's statement further raises the fundamental questions about the status of the Federal Capital Territory and whether or not the minister who draws his authority from the President can act in similar manner as state governors. On one side is a lawmaker who was elected by majority votes of the people of the FCT and feels responsible to them. And on the other hand, is an appointee of the President who won lesser votes in the FCT but has constitutional power to serve as its governor. The controversy regarding the status of the FCT has grown more intense in the wake of the Presidential Election Petitions Court judgment, which affirmed it as the 37th state in Nigeria. Well, to help us understand and untie the knotty issues involved, we have joining us in the studio a researcher and academic, Dr. Austin Maho. He's a lecturer with the National Open University of Nigeria now, and also publishes the Daybreak newspaper in the nation's capital, Abuja. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us.
Yeah, Sambo, nice to be here.
Yes. Yeah. I've invited you here to actually talk more about this ongoing brouhaha between the elected senator of the FCT and then, of course, the minister who's an appointee of the President. To help us shed more light on this, because you wrote an article on this, especially during the aftermath of the Presidential Election Petitions Court judgment. And I want you to properly situate it. Let's start from the executive powers of the FCT. Where does it reside?
Obviously, it's a constitutional matter, and if you ask me a direct question, I'll tell you why it's a constitutional matter. As long as it is a constitutional matter, we refer back to the Constitution to answer that question. No, what has led to speculation in recent times is as a result of the Presidential Election Tribunal or Presidential Election Court's decision in relation to Section 134. Where people have been interpreting whether the 36th state and the FCT, whether it's a conjoint or a disjoint. And in the wisdom of the Presidential Election Petition Court, they said, you know, the petition of the Labour Party that FCT should be treated as a special case whereby it will require anybody that for somebody to become the president of the federation, he needs to win at least 25% of the FCT.
Yeah, and let me just quote it specifically, what the Constitution says. 134, subsection 1B. It says that for you to emerge as candidate, for you to emerge as president, that he has not less than 1/4 of the votes cast at the election in each of at least 2/3 of all the states in the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. So I guess that's the specific.
That is a specific one. So the PEPT ruled that, look, it is ridiculous. It's ludicrous, let me use their word, to expect that because for a president to win the FCT, he must score 25% in the FCT. That is not a requirement. And they went on to cite Section 299, Chapter 8 of the Constitution, which created the Federal Capital Territory, to say that, look, the Federal Capital Territory is not different from any of the other states of the Federation. In fact, the FCT, it should be, by constitutional provision, it should be treated as any of the other 36 states of the Federation. In other words, the FCT, when you go down through from Section 299 to section 301, 302, you are going to find out that the FCT has the executive power of the FCT is domiciled in Mr. President, who exercised that power through delegation by delegating it to the Minister of the FCT, who act as the Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay? Delegated power. Then you now have the National Assembly, which equally serve as the legislative arm for the Federal Capital Territory. And in effect, that is why the budget of the FCT, you know, is laid before the National Assembly. So in effect, the FCT, by pronouncement, like you said, I wrote an article on this issue. By pronouncement, what I was looking at in my article is that, look, now that the Presidential Election Tribunal has made
petitions court, actually.
Yeah, petition court, or you know, some people still call it a tribunal, had made that pronouncement. It behoves on all of us, okay, to begin to say, well, based on this decision, and in conjunction with section 299, that states that the FCT should be treated as a, then let's expunge section 301 and 302 of the Constitution so that the FCT cannot be treated fully as a state, so that we can remove these constitutional lacuna that still vest power on the president to appoint or to treat the FCT as an appendage of the office of the president. Of the office of the president. Because to look at it, if you allow me to go further, if you look at it, the court stated that, look, FCT residents don't have special, we are not special, so we don't have veto powers over other Nigerians. Other Nigerians cannot vote, then the resident of the FCT will not have that veto power to be able to decide whether their vote will count for who they voted for or not. And truly, we shouldn't have that veto power. And my argument equally is, look, under the principle of equality of citizens, all Nigerians should be equal. In other words, FCT citizens should equally enjoy the same privileges, rights that citizens of that other Nigerians in other states of the Federation enjoy. Because at the end of the day, if you say residents of the FCT don't have veto power, our vote is equal to any other person, any other vote of any other person
in any other
states of the Federation, then it stands to reason that FCT residents are being discriminated against, since our votes cannot determine who becomes the chief executive of the Federal Capital Territory. And we don't have 3 senators and several House of Rep members, just like other states have. So we are facing, under the concept of equality of citizenship, as a resident of the Federal Capital Territory, I feel the Constitution is discriminated against me by the pronouncement of the Presidential Election Court. I feel discriminated again. So what should be done is let the FCT enjoy full status as a state. So let's expunge section 301 and 302,
which give powers to the minister and all of that.
Yes.
But let's come back to the war between the elected senator and the minister. The senator is saying that I am elected by the residents of the Federal Capital Territory, both indigenous and all of that, and I am the one that knows these people better. You are just an appointee, and you're issuing threats of demolition, you're issuing threats of this and that to everybody. Why don't you come to me, let's sit down and talk, and gauge the feelings of the resident before you go around and harassing almost everyone. How do you think that there can be a meeting point between these two persons? Because the minister says he's only accountable to the president, who's the governor of the FCT, while the senator says she's accountable to the people who elected her. Talk to us about all of that.
So the controversy is actually, if I get you right, is whether the minister of the FCT has executive powers. To answer that question, the minister of the FCT has, in a democracy, has executive powers. But you can say his executive power is not absolute.
Just as it doesn't lie in him, but in that of the president.
But it's delegated.
Yeah, but it's also delegated.
It's delegated. If you look at how the FCT has been run over time, The minister of the FCT must have the confidence of Mr. President to be able to administer the FCT, thoroughly. And if you look at the statement made by Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think that was on Thursday when
the delegation of Rivers State traditional rulers
met with him at the State House. It shows that, look, there's absolutely no doubt that Mr. President has thorough confidence in his delegated authority to a wiki to exercise executive powers. And when this controversy equally came up, whether wiki has executive power, you equally have to look at what transpired, what happened last week that precipitated or that made the senator representing the FCT, Hajia
Ireti
Kingebe, to make that statement. He appointed mandate secretaries,
mandate secretaries,
which is the equivalent of commissioners in other states. What he was trying to say, I got the reaction from him. What she was trying to say, because she made reference to it, is that, look, those mandate secretaries ought to, after nomination, before inaugurating them, he ought to have passed those lists, those names to the National Assembly for approval.
Yeah, but there's no precedence to that, actually.
That is the point I'm trying to make. It has never happened before. It has never happened before. And I feel that if she feels that, look, we can need to defer to the National Assembly as the legislative arm of the FCT before taking decision, making appointment, I feel that she should enrich the jurisprudence, guiding the FCT, and go to court and seek judicial interpretation whether a wiki can actually nominate swaying commissioner without reference or difference.
But also the minister said, from the
National Assembly,
from some of his people actually said he didn't nominate. The president nominated these people and sent him the list to go and inaugurate them. But looking at Section 303 of the 1999 Constitution, it also gives the National Assembly the powers to make laws for the administration and good governance of the territory. So how come that the National Assembly members haven't been able to, if they want these mandate secretaries to appear them, make a law to now say that
he should present that list before them. In any case, many of us still feel it's an aberration. I have lived in the FCT, for instance, for about 23 years. I don't expect that. I don't think it is fair. I equally feel it's discriminatory, like I said earlier on, for you to put the legislative powers of the FCT in the hands of somebody I didn't vote to represent me. Bring people from all parts of the country that the resident of the FCT didn't vote for to represent them, to be making laws for them. And in any case, their hands are full. And if you look at from 1999 to date, how many laws have they made for the good governance of the FCT? Many of them are overworked. They are more concerned with what is happening at the national level or in their states, where their state or constituencies.
Isn't that the reason why they have the Senate committees on FCT and House Committee on FCT? To have an oversight on what's going on in the city.
Let's not go into that, because we know what they do. If you look at my article, I actually made mention of since 1999, about 8 ministers, have presided over the affairs of the FCT. And we know that 3 of them went on to become governors of their state. Adamu Alero, Nasir El-Rufai, and Bala Mohammed. They were all former ministers of the FCT. You ask yourself, who were these people before they became ministers of the FCT? They were, apart from El-Rufai, many of them were hardly unknown. So the FCT became more like a ground for them to prop up their finances, prop up their leverage on their political ambition to be able to become governors of their state. It's just like the last minister, Bala, what's his name again? Mohammed. Immediately he finished his tenure. I know some people who covered him. He went straight to the airport. 8 years, longest serving minister of the FCT. Straight to the airport, to Yola, to Adamawa. And that was it. So you find out that when somebody is appointed to rule a place like the FCT, his allegiance is not to the people of the territory, and he may not understand the real problems of the FCT.
Yeah, but
his allegiance is likely to be to Mr. President, not to the people.
And the Constitution gives the president the powers, actually. But I just want to bring you back.
The Constitution gives the power to the president, and it is that constitutional provision that many of us are against. And I hope, because you talk about Ereti Kingibe, instead of him trying to fight for whether Wiki has executive power or not, I think she should focus more on her legislative agenda for the FCT. What's your legislative agenda? Will you try to correct this abnormally? See, Sambo, like I said, I've been in the FCT for about 25 years. And I've tried to, initially when I came to Abuja, I tried to look at the act setting up the FCT. Why was the FCT set up? What was the condition precedent for making Abuja what they call a no man's land? Abuja, as at 1978, was truly a no man's land. It has a population of about 100,000 people.
Well,
100,000 people.
The University of Ibadan actually said over 400,000 after their demographic survey.
But my own research said about 100,000 people. You've corrected me. I'll check that out. But when you say 400,000, let's use your figure. Let's say 400,000 people. And what was the condition precedent to make Abuja truly a no man's land? The federal government was supposed to relocate the original inhabitants of FCT, so that you really free up the area and know that you have taken it over fully. But has the federal government since 1978 been able to do that? The simple answer is no.
Well, 1976 actually, when it was created.
I'm looking at 1978.
Yes, when the policy started
being implemented.
Yes.
Up till the full relocation around 1991 and all that. So
December
you find out that
1991 actually.
Since the military regime, the military era, they tried to do some level of relocation of the original inhabitants of Abuja. But I know that since this democratic era, 1999, the successive administration in FCT, they've not talked about relocating the original inhabitants of Abuja. They have been more concerned with integration. So what is the policy? You understand? And I read some, and if you have not been able to fulfill that condition precedent to make Abuja a no man's land, then of course, if you say, because they always say that, they always tell us that, look, Abuja is modeled after other capitals in the world, some capitals that were built from the scratch, like Washington, D.C. or Brasilia. But if you take the case, I'm just trying to put everything in perspective, why I go on making this argument that section 301, 302 should be expunged from the Constitution. If you take the case of Brasilia, for instance, there's a deliberate policy by the Brazilian government to make sure to control the population influx into Brazil so that you truly have an administrative capital.
Yeah, I mean,
and in the case,
that's where Abuja has lost out, yes, actually.
Not like Abuja Abuja is no longer an administrative capital.
Because it was clearly stated in the Akinola Aguda panel that the federal government must make it very clear that it's an administrative and political city so that Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Kaduna, there will be economic centers, but that has happened. Okay, now let's go back. Let's go back to what this FCT senator was saying. She was angry that some of these mandate secretariats too are being created for people who are brought from outside the territory to come and be mandate secretary. She says she asked someone, I mean one of them who was made a mandate secretary, do you know Kwali, for example, and he said, well, I don't know there. So if people are being brought from other states to come and be mandate secretary, which is sort of like commissioners in FCT, and they don't live here, they don't pay their taxes here, to her, they don't understand the city, and it will be difficult for them to be able to discharge their responsibilities to both in the indigenous and then the residents. Talk to us about how we can reform the system to better create a city that works for everyone.
On that, I agree with her totally. It's just like I gave the case of the former minister of the FCT. He never had a stake. He doesn't have a stake. Immediately he finished, he left. 8 years, you didn't open one district. One district. And we've seen series of allegations against him of how they were a project, variation in project.
Well, that has been denied actually very quickly. Let's put that in perspective, because the FCT administration says that there's nothing like that for now. So it's still a subject of investigation.
Okay,
because even the FCT minister said that there were variation on projects, but he said they are still subject to investigation.
I'm just saying it. It's allegations. Let's put it in the realm of allegation as journalists. He alleged. He said it in the open. It's not hidden, but it's an he can say it's an allegation. You understand? But the point I'm trying to make is, which is a fact, is that for 8 years he never opened a new district in FCT. No district open. Most of the projects he embarked upon, road project within the central area, none is, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, he engaged in the completion of previous projects that had been abandoned. That's what he said when he actually came in 2015.
He didn't complete most of them. Most of them are lying there, they are uncompleted. The point I'm making with all this is that, look, if we have, in line with the question you raised, if we have somebody who have a stake, who will come back to the people and say, based on this, vote me for a second time, or I want to, or he comes to you with a promise. Mandate secretariats have the mandate secretarial or commissioner, we call it, have the mandate to operate based on the campaign promises of the chief executive. So you operate based on the promises you've made to the people. But by the time you bring in outsiders who don't understand where Kwali Area Council is, how will he appreciate the problems of residents? How will he, for instance, like I wrote another article which I call Abuja's Metro Rail to Nowhere. How will he appreciate the fact that building a metro rail project from the center of the city to the airport is a white elephant project, because nobody, as evidence in that project, nobody is using that rail, whereby you ignore where the vast majority of the population of Abuja is, the satellite towns that need to transverse from their area to the city every day. You ignore them, but you are ready to spend about 800 million US dollars to build a rail from the center of the city to the airport.
Which is still yet to be completed, actually.
And spend another 5 billion because the rail is not in use. You spend another 5 billion to replace vandalized parts.
That's 5 billion naira you actually mean.
Yeah,
so as we try to round up this,
those are some of the questions that bothers us as residents of the FCT.
Yeah,
and that's why we need people that have true stake in the FCT to be able to develop this city. Yeah,
as we try to round off this conversation very quickly now, we've seen all of these issues going back to the Constitution. And the FCT senator that was elected, Senator Ireti Kingibe, under the circumstance, talking about how Governor Nyesom Wike should not think that he's the governor of FCT, that he's actually there as a minister. And then, of course, the Constitution actually contradicting itself by saying that the president is actually the governor of the city and it gives this delegated power to the minister. How do we ensure that, this FCT senator can now take a bill to the National Assembly and look for ways to, maybe take your concerns into place, like the expulsion of Section 301, 302 that you talked about, and, make a city that works for almost every Nigerian?
Yeah, I think that is why I said, what is her legislative agenda? She should begin to work in line with a legislative agenda by consulting with key stakeholders in the FCT. What do they want? I know she already, from the tone of her voice, because I listened to her when she granted that press interview. She said, after the Supreme Court has dispensed with the case, that they would take it up. She would take it up, with the National Assembly to see that FCT truly becomes a state. And that is the desire of most stakeholders, residents and indigents of the FCT, for them to feel a sense of belonging. You can't be, it's not a crime that for the indigenous that they donated the area called the FCT. I feel pain when many of them will talk that, look, we are stateless. How can you live in a country like Nigeria and be stateless?
Of course, you will miss out on several resources.
Yes, and I feel that she need to have that as topmost priority.
How about the minister? What was your advice, very quickly, before
for the minister? I think the minister is exercising executive power, and he needs to do it in collaboration in collaboration with the three House members, and of course the senator representing FCT.
Two House members actually, and then the senator representing FCT.
And there should be no rancor and bitterness among them. They should work in harmony. The minister, I believe he means well, but he should tone down his rhetorics of threat a little. And,
yeah, I mean, as a former governor, you would have thought that, I mean, it's still the same things that apply over there. But we must thank you so much. Dr. Osi Maho is a lecturer with the National Open University of Nigeria, and he's also the publisher of the Daybreak newspaper here in the nation's capital, Abuja. He's been following the growth of the city, and we'll continue to thank you for joining us to help us shed light on what it means to actually run Abuja.